Hunting the Shadows. Hunting the Shadows.
Good evening, folks, and welcome to another edition of Hunting the Shadows. I'm your host, Dennis Carroll, and it's a dark, windy, hurricane kind of a night out there tonight. Perfect night for some of the subjects we're going to definitely be getting into tonight. It's kind of quiet down here at the morgue. I think you can see Bill, the night watchman's checked in. He's here listening. And I got a little something for you to start with here tonight. And this is it. The time has come, the walrus said, to talk of many things, of shoes and ships and sealing wax, of cabbages and kings, and why the sea is boiling hot and weathered pigs have wings. That's a very famous line from a very famous poem by Lewis Carroll, you know, the guy that wrote about Alice's adventures through the looking glass and down the rabbit hole, and those were definitely portals. Alice was doing some portal stuff, okay, folks? Definitely, and we're going to go down a deep rabbit hole tonight. The name of our episode tonight is The Secrets of the Very Haunted. I think you're going to find this a very interesting show. We're going to get into some really interesting topics, definitely. I'm not going to be talking too much about demons tonight. I know you don't be shocked now, okay? I'm not getting into the demon things too much tonight. We're going to be talking about ghosts tonight. I have been fascinated by ghosts and ghost stories since before I can remember anything, just about. I mean, I sat as a very small child at my grandmother's knee begging to hear ghost stories. They have always fascinated me. They've always been a part of my makeup, definitely. And when I first had my experience with the demon thing, and I actually discovered that there was a spiritual side to our world, you know. When I discovered that, it lit a fire under me to know more. If that was one thing that was out there, what else was out there? And I found out, folks, very quickly, there was a whole lot of stuff out there that I didn't really think about until then. And I really set out from that time forward to actually have an encounter with a ghost. I wanted that very much. I got my wish later on, definitely more than once. And we're going to talk about that a little bit tonight because I'm one of the very haunted, okay, individuals because I have known a lot of hauntings in my time. My very, very first paranormal case when I was very young was actually having a case brought to me. It was the very first one. I might have been about 15 years old, I think, at the time. This was before the werewolf incident when I actually physically went and investigated a werewolf sighting. This was a thing that someone came to me with. They were afraid. They were put upon them by a witch. Okay, that was what they were worried about with that. I hope we don't lose power tonight. Okay, if we do, we'll have to continue some other time. But anyway, the thing about it is, I set out to do that, okay, and to actually encounter a ghost. Now, when you're young, you do some crazy stuff, and I'm not, subject to the rule on that. Definitely, I did a lot of stupid stuff in my pursuit. Sometimes you pursue things the right way, and sometimes you don't. And in my 20s, I think I went about it in the wrong way. Definitely, I found out later that that's not the way to go. But and I'm going to talk about that in a few minutes. But I held seances and stuff like that. And I'm going to talk about that a little bit more. But uh, after that, I turned to the more scholarly pursuit of these things. I don't know if a lot of you are aware of this, but I actually have a degree in parapsychology. I have a doctorate in metaphysics. I've got my thing around here somewhere, and I also have a honorary professorship in that as well. That's my degree there. In that, but that was to prove to myself that I could sort of haul the load on this and do the things I needed to do. Say hello to a few people out there. Freaky Geek, Shiro's out there. Gemini Moon, how you doing? And Midwest Night Watchers, Ann and Russell, how you doing? Crystal, Philip, how you doing, bud? Aussie Sue, good to have you aboard, my dear friend. And everybody's come on in. I hope we have a big group tonight because I hope we'll have an interesting discussion. But anyway, I pursued these things in the scholarly course, and that was okay. There's nothing wrong with that. I wanted to have the credentials to back some of this up, not to prove to myself in a way that I was very serious about it, but not really to worry about proving it to others. Okay, I am who I am. Okay, that's just me, and you don't have to call me doctor or anything like that. Just call me Dennis. But I had to prove that to myself, and I had to prove my seriousness and my scholarly output on that. But before that, back in my 20s and late teens, I did things that were a little crazy, a little wacky in my pursuit and of trying to understand these things. But yeah, definitely I was out to have an encounter with the ghosts, with anything, monster hunting, whatever the case might have been, UFOs, whatever was in my realm of interest, and it was a very big realm, okay, folks? I wanted to understand it all. I wanted to grasp it. I wanted to embrace that mystery. That's my motto. That's the motto of this show. Embrace the mystery. And the mystery is my mistress, you might say, in that respect. I love mystery, and it has always been something that is called to me. It is a calling that I will always have in my life, definitely. Hello from Crystal McGee. And love cat. To me, that's always been there in my life, But you do things the wrong way sometimes, and definitely I held some seances in my time. Okay, I would get groups of people together and have seances, and I'll tell you about a couple of instances that went with that. And I do not advise you folks to ever get into this. Okay, I found out the hard way. This is something really you need to leave alone. It's very much along the same lines, definitely, as opening those portals I mentioned earlier, those doorways. You don't ever want to if you do that, you better be prepared for the consequences, and they may not be very good consequences. Believe me, I know personally. So really, that's something you've got to really watch out for on that, okay? Because this is along the same lines of Ouija board activity, and it carries over into that to a certain extent. But I would get together and have these seances because I desperately wanted that encounter with a ghost or a spirit. I wanted to know that there was just a demonological side to this, but there was maybe a human equation in that as well, and that was my pursuit. And I will remember one night I had a group of people together, and we were at around a table with a single candle going. We were all touching hands, the usual routine. You've seen this 1,000 times in Hollywood movies and stuff. We were all in the frame of mind for this, and and I was doing very dramatically. I was doing the call. Now the call is when you call out to the spirits. Say, spirits in the afterworld or beyond the veil of life and all this thing. Please come to us. Be contact. The whole thing. You've seen this 1,000 times, I'm sure, in movies. But that's the way you do it, and you do this in a more calling kind of a way. But what this is for is not basically, although it does call the spirits. If you call them a lot of times, and that's what I say, when you pick up the phone and call somebody, you expect them to be on the other end, right? Well, same thing with spirits. You better be careful what you say and what your intent is, because you can definitely get their attention, okay? And you might not want that attention, okay? You might later on decide you were in the wrong on that score. So to me, the interesting thing was while we were doing this, and it was like, it was a dark room, just a single candle lit. We were all touching hands. I did the spiel, come talk to us, come give us a sign, give us a sign. All of a sudden, bam, right in the middle of the table, it was a big thud, bam, right in the middle of the table. It didn't come up under the table now. It wasn't anybody doing that with their knee. It wasn't a trick. This was from the top down onto the table. And we're all like, we kind of fall back, kind of jump back a little bit, This, was very dramatic. And by that time, the candle goes out. It's just like someone snuffed the candle out. There was no wind blowing through the room, okay? The windows didn't blow open like you see in the Hollywood movies. That didn't happen. But it was very strange because I was standing there, I was looking, okay? Nobody reached over and blew that candle out. I mean, it was just like, if you've ever snuffed a candle out, and I've done that, you snuff that candle out, it doesn't move when you snuff it out. That's what happened to this flame. The flame went boom, it was gone. It was just like somebody put a hand over it. And about that same time, everybody except me vacated that room very quickly. Okay, they were gone. And I'm sitting there at this table with this smoking candle out, and I very faintly hear a far-off laugh. And it's not a maniacal laugh. It's sort of a humorous kind of a chuckle, kind of a laugh. And it wasn't any of them because I was alone. There was nothing in there. This was not a trick. Believe me, I knew what was going on. And that was kind of my encounter on that one with seance. And I'll tell you another seance I had. I had probably several dozen seances in my time and had some freaky stuff happen. Usually people going into trances and all that. I never did actually go into a trance. I never had spirits come into me and talk through me and all that stuff. I never did that. I have had it happen to other people in the circle though. But anyway, I guess I wasn't open to it in that respect. Or maybe I didn't want to go that route, whatever my mindset was at that time. Anyway, the interesting thing about it is that on this seance, and this was about the last seance I had, I was with someone, a friend, and I called up the spirits of the night. I said, spirits of the night, come forth, and the whole thing. And I said, give us a sign. Let there be a fog. Let there be a fog. Show us a sign. Give us a fog. Breathe your spiritual breath upon the land, and let there be a fog tonight, and all this stuff. And it was absolutely clear when I did this, folks. Okay. And all of a sudden, while I'm sitting there, and I think we were outside doing this. Actually, it was not in a house. We were outside doing it. I think in a garden. All of a sudden, the fog starts rolling. I'm not kidding you. A fog starts rolling in, little by little bit, just like you see in the movies. It comes along the ground first, and then it gets up higher and higher. And all of a sudden, we're sitting out in a fog, and there was not one there several minutes before that. Okay, that was really freaky. All right. Anyway, that I'm sitting there going dumbfounded. I'm so what the heck have I done? And it was one of the thickest fogs. Eventually, it was a fog all night long. It went away, of course, the next day. But it was one of the thickest fogs I've ever seen. And the other person would look to me like, "What have you done?" kind of a thing, And I said, what? Maybe I'm really messing around with something I shouldn't be messing around with here. Okay, if that can happen, they're definitely listening. Okay. So, yes, I've had people ask me over the years, are spirits listening to us? Are they watching us? Well, what do you think? You know, after my experiences, I have to say, yeah, there's a definite probability there. Absolutely. That they are listening and watching us. Now, of course, some of these may have been evil spirits that were called up. I'm not going to get into that tonight. That's another thing for another time about the demonic. But you have to wonder what kind of spirits you are dealing. When you contact someone or something on the other side, who are you really talking to? That's a very, very, very important question. One I can't stress enough. Who are you really communicating with? Okay, is it someone you really want to talk to, or is it somebody out for no good on your part? That's what you need to really ascertain. But really, it's a good idea not to contact those people. The Bible does talk about that, does talk against that, and ghosts are mentioned in the Bible. Matter of fact, Jesus mentioned ghosts. Jesus, when he came back, was not a ghost, okay, folks? He was not a ghost. He was transfigured into a new body. He had a new body, per se, a new being that he was, a risen being. He was not a ghost. He was not a spirit in that respect. Although his body may have been spiritual energy kind of a thing. He was not a spirit. Jesus told him, said, touch me. I'm not a ghost. Does a ghost have flesh and blood? That's a ghost, folks. Okay. So, ghosts are talked about a lot in the Bible. The very famous Witch of Endor thing, where the Witch of Endor called up Samuel. Now, I want to say this about that. A lot of preachers say, oh, that was a demon masquerading as him. No, I believe it was the real Samuel. I believe it was sent back by God. God can do whatever he wants to, by the way, folks. He's God, okay? And I believe he sent Samuel back for a very specific reason, because he had to tell Saul, what did he say? An evil spirit's life, okay? This one told the truth. And that makes me think he came from God, okay? That he was actually the real Samuel sent back. Because Samuel, the real Samuel, was in heaven, okay? And he could be sent back if God so deemed it. But he told Saul, where I am today, so shall you be tomorrow. And Saul was dead tomorrow. The next day he died. That was it. Although it was self-fulfilling in a way. He fell upon his own sword, committed suicide. But that was the prophecy was true. The last prophecy of the prophet Samuel came true. That was not a demon, folks, in disguise. It definitely was not. It was the spirit, I believe without a doubt, the spirit of Samuel. And that's why, of course, the witch passed out, because the witch probably wasn't really expecting a real ghost to show up. Okay, kind of like how it happened with me in my seance. I wasn't expecting a real ghost to show up. Matter of fact, I had some kids wanted me one time to do a seance in a car. Actually, it was a station wagon we were all sitting in, and I did one in that one night, and we had a big loud thump on the top of the car then, and everybody piled out of that car, Betty. I mean, it was quick. You have some interesting things happen in seances, but I warn you not to do that, because here's the thing about seances I come to find out in my latter years. You are opening the door to some type of spiritual possession, whether it could be demonic or whether it is human spirit, a malevolent human spirit that is trying to have some kind of influence over you. You're opening the door that should best be left closed, okay? So don't fool around with that. That's my advice, definitely, very strongly. Don't do the stupid things I did, okay? Do not fool around with that, because it can be very, very hazardous to you. So anyway, the interesting thing about that is I learned a lesson the hard way from that. Be careful who you call. You might get an answer. Okay. But when you talk about some of these other things of the hauntings, things that haunt us, you have to think about some of your encounters. Definitely. I finally, years later, actually did encounter ghosts. Actual, I think without doubt, were probably human ghosts. But that's very rare. You know, that doesn't happen as much as Hollywood and ghost hunters would have you think. Okay, forget about the TV aspect. You know, 99.9% of everything on TV is fake anyway. Okay. Um, or as Edgar Allan Poe said, believe nothing that you hear and half of what you see. Okay. Um, the whole thing is, uh, human spirits, I think, are kind of rare, and there are reasons for them being here, being bound, earthbound spirits, if they are earthbound. Sometimes they are held captive by demonic spirits. Sometimes there is something left unfinished and undone. There's some kind of a binding tie that won't turn them loose. Sometimes they can be confused and don't understand that they're really dead or what has happened to them. They're lost and confused, especially if they died very traumatically and very quickly. In that respect, that might be one of the causes for these human spirits. But I can tell you this, sitting here tonight, definitely face to face to you, that there are spirits out there, and there is something else, folks, beyond death, life and death. Okay, there's something else beyond life. There is another existence there, without a doubt. That is what I have discovered over the years. But I have had different types of experiences with ghosts. I have seen full-bodied apparitions on several occasions. That is the holy grail of ghost research, spirit research, to actually be able to see a full bodily apparition. But now the ones I saw basically I never did actually have one interact with me in that way. It didn't walk up and said, "Hey, Dennis, how you doing? How's everything on this side?" You know, I never had that happen, but I have seen them from a distance, never real close up. And I think some of them may be what we term residual haunting, which I think has got something to do with time and space continuum, that you're actually seeing something replayed over and over again. It's sort of a time glitch, whatever you want to call it. I definitely believe in that because I've seen it, I've experienced it. And that may be part of what the residual haunting will be. And then there's the part two I call the ghost of memories. It's almost as if a memory of that traumatic happening is still stuck there in that place. Those are haunted places, and I've been in a whole lot of haunted places in my time, not just haunted houses. Matter of fact, the most interesting places to me are outdoor haunted locations more so than houses, although I've always dearly wanted to investigate and explore a lot of castles worldwide, definitely. A castle would be very interesting. Think of just the history there, and wherever there is a lot of history, you may have that distinct possibility of running into the spiritual aspects of the unseen out there. Okay, definitely. To me, it would be very interesting to find out just exactly what it's like over there on the other side. Okay, and let me talk about that for just a moment. I think that is another existence, dimensional wise, from us. Okay, and here's why I think that. I've had a lot of this interest with EVPs over the years. I've had them whisper in my ear. I've actually heard these things. But the interesting thing is, thank you, Derek. Subscribe. I appreciate that. But to me, the interesting thing is, when you're dealing with a dimensional, the way I can describe this is kind of like the movie Constantine, when he saw hell, and it was here, but it was in another dimension, kind of a thing. And that may be what their existence is. And like I say, with the EVPs, I said over the years, people go through, "Oh, what's your name? What's your deal? When did you die? What's all that?" And I tell them, slow down, because these things are probably, these spirits or whatever these beings are not on our time and space here. Okay, they're on their time and space, and it may not jive with ours. Okay, so give them a while to communicate. But most of the time, my purpose was never really to communicate that much with them, because what are you going to ask them? Tell me what it's like on the other side. They probably don't understand that either. Okay, a lot of them are lost or whatever the case may be, and I think a lot of spirits. And that's why I say don't usually look for ghosts too much in graveyards, because the demonic is usually hanging out there more than the ghost. Those people, 99% of those people are gone on to wherever they're supposed to go. That's how you lay ghosts, And I want to talk about laying ghosts here in a moment. But most of those people are gone. They've gone on to their reward, gone whichever where they're supposed to go, wherever that may be. But you may have some earthbound spirits, and that's when you have to lay a ghost. Now, there are different ways to lay a ghost. Of course, you can do the Supernatural TV series way. You can shoot them with rock salt, and that does actually work, folks. If you hit them with rock salt, it will disperse them. Usually, it won't. You can't kill a ghost. Let's look at it this way, because he's already dead. All right. So you don't really get rid of a ghost that way. You might scare him off a little bit, or get rid of him for a while with a load of rock salt, or just throwing salt on him would be the same thing, or even holy water for that matter, if it's a malevolent spirit. The way you lay a ghost is when you've got to communicate to it and just tell it, hey, you're dead, buddy. Time for you to move on. There's nothing here left for you. Time has passed. And all that. You've got to explain it to them that, you don't need to stay here anymore. You need to go on. That just laying a ghost, or some people give it the fancy name of soul rescue. Which I always thought was kind of theatrical, but I guess you are rescuing a soul to a certain extent in that way. But now that's the interesting thing about, to me, the interesting thing about the spiritual aspects of spiritual investigation. These things, as like I said earlier, are probably listening to you, okay? And if you lay a ghost like that, usually, and there is a religious way to do that as well. It's sort of like excommunication backwards. I'll have to explain it one night, but it is the bell, book, and candle thing, okay? It can be used against the demonic as well, okay? The bell, book, and candle is the way you basically lay a ghost. Now, I'll explain it real quick. You light a candle and you say, this candle is for the spirit. It signifies, it symbolizes the spirit that's here among us. This candle is lit, and you call his name, if you know the name. You call the name and you say, this is your candle. And you open the book, which is the Bible, and you read the 92nd Psalm, 91st Psalm, and all that out of it. And then you ring a bell. The bell, by the way, and the reason why you have the bell, bells are very well known to capture the attention of spirits. Okay. Now, when you ring that bell, it's supposed to catch their attention. They see their candle. They know you're communicating with them. And then you tell them, your time on this earth is past. It's time for you to go on to your reward. When we close the book and we lay the bell down and we put out the candle, it'll be time for you to leave. That's the way you do it. And when you get through with the passage, you close the Bible, you turn the bell over so it won't ring anymore. You turn the bell over and you snuff out the candle and you tell them goodbye. That's it. That's how you lay a ghost. Okay, there are other methods I won't get into tonight, but to me that seemed to be the most effective way to go about it. It's the bell, book, and candle thing. Although it is used too in certain aspects of witchcraft and in the exorcisms or excommunicating of people too, but I won't get into that. That's another aspect of the bell, book, and candle thing. We'll talk about that. We might have to do a show on that one on just by itself sometime. It's very interesting. Yeah. Well, the bell is chimed for my dinner time there, Freaky Geek, definitely. But anyway, I hope the ghosts don't feed, because they would be basically feeding on us, would they not? Because they're ghosts, they don't eat food, okay? They would eat spiritual energy, wouldn't they? Wouldn't it be freaky? Sort of like the vampires. By the way, next week, folks, you want to set your calendar for it. Next week, New Age vampires, understanding the undead. Okay, I'll remind you about that again before the show's over tonight. But anyway, um, when got into my pursuit of these spirits, I found out there were so many different ways to go about it, But I wanted to use the correct methods and the more biblical kind of a way to communicate with these things. And of course, the Bible strictly warns us against communicating with spirits because, and here's the really basic reason about that, especially when it comes to the demonic, you don't want to get an attachment from this. You remember the very famous cases of the Dybbuk boxes and all these other things. You don't want a spiritual attachment. Definitely not. That's a monkey on your back you do not want, okay? Because it will drive you totally insane. It will make your life a living hell. It will destroy you. It is a form of a curse, okay? The curse of attachment, you might say. And you do not want that to ever happen, which is why I warn a lot of investigators, paranormal investigators, be very careful going in to your situation and coming out. Make sure you safeguard yourself. And of course, the best way to safeguard yourself is through faith and belief in a higher being, in a light that encompasses all that armor of light that we need to put on that will protect us. As the Bible says, the night is far spent, the day is at hand. Therefore, let us put away the works of darkness and put on the armor of light. That's what we need to do. That armor of light is what will protect us in any situation. Now, during certain investigations, when I know there's going to be something very bad there, whether it is, I think, a malevolent human thing or demonic, I will go to a location nearby. Usually it's outside, not in the house, not in the building itself. Outside, I will make a salt circle and sanctify that circle and the inner part of that circle as a place of safety. And you can, if someone is under spiritual attack, you can bring them and put them in that salt circle. That will protect them and get these spirits off of these people, okay? And I've done that as a safeguard. Let me tell you a quick story. It was a young man I was with who was actually spiritually attacked during an investigation one night, and I had to get him out of that house. I had to take him completely out of the house, and I did not have a salt circle at that time, though. But I took him on up far away from the house. You got to get people away from where this influence is at, and you definitely hope it don't follow them. I took precautions to keep it from following us. But here's the interesting thing. I think it followed us. And here's why I say, because I got him out there and I prayed for him and all that. And as soon as I got through praying for him, every dog in that neighborhood began to howl. I mean, it was very dramatic. It was like something out of a horror movie, but it happened. I mean, they just started howling, and they howled for several minutes to finally stop. He was in such bad shape. I could see the reaction when I got through praying for him. He was getting better, getting over it, but he was under some very distinct duress. And I've seen it happen many times, folks. I've seen people attacked in these ways, and you've got to be ready for that. You've got to be ready for that. As a matter of fact, when I was on that television show with that group in the Ghost Asylum, and you can still catch that show. It's on YouTube if you ever want to see me on TV. It was when they went back to Cannon Memorial Hospital, which is in North Carolina. It's gone now. I think it's been destroyed, but it was an asylum, and they were attacked very badly there. One of them was especially, but he listened to me. He put on that armor of light. When he went back in there, nothing touched him again, but he jumped on every one of the rest of them. They wouldn't listen to me. He jumped on every one of the rest of them. One of them had to leave completely out of there because they didn't follow the guidelines that I gave them. And it's very specific. It's not just me making this up. I mean, this is a well-known set of guidelines that people that investigate need to follow for their own safety and the safety of the people with them. Don't take this as a joke, folks, okay? Don't take this as a thrill-seeking thing. Don't do that, because that's a very dangerous aspect of it. This is very serious stuff. This is stuff, you better know what you're dealing with before you start trying any of this stuff, definitely. So anyway, hey, Michelle. Anyway, the whole thing is, you got to approach it the right way and don't do it the wrong way. Okay, that's just the way everything is in life. Do it the right way the first time, and you don't have to worry about going back and cleaning anything up after. Okay, especially when it comes to spiritual aspects and all that. But over the years, I have had run-ins with a lot of them. But like the very first time, when I was like maybe the very first thing had happened to me, that's before I saw those demonic spirits, was actually in a haunted house, and I had shouted in my ear, "Get out!" Very quickly. It wasn't anybody around me. It was not a trick of the sound trick. I tried to replicate it. It didn't work. It was an actual something wanting me to get out of there. When I immediately took its advice too, by the way. I figured it knew more about it than I did. So anyway, to me, the aspects of all this can be frightening to some people. I understand that. To me, it doesn't bother me that much. I mean, I've seen it. Okay, I've been there, done that, got the T-shirt. Okay, but it can be frightening to a lot of people when they think about it, and they don't want to deal with that. And I can understand where they're coming from because it rocks their boat, on their grasp on reality, to believe that there's something else in that, and that's what metaphysics is all about. When I became a doctor of metaphysics, because that is the study of the unseen and how it influences the seen. The esoteric and arcane aspects of it all is what you have to take into account, especially when it comes to parapsychology, to understand how the belief of people, where they're coming from with their superstitions and their religious beliefs too, and all that. That's where you get into one of my favorite subjects, which is not just parapsychology, but it's also the study of folklore. Which to me is very interesting because it's the belief systems of people are in that as well, and how they look and see and how they grasp this reality that's all around us. And if it's an unseen reality, it can be frightening to people. H.P. Lovecraft said one of the most virulent emotions is the emotion of fear, and the most prevalent fear is the fear of the unknown. But I've told this to a lot of people, and I've mentored a lot of them over the years. Once it's known, then it's not quite as frightening. You know what I'm saying? You can get a handle on your fear then, And to me, that's very interesting. Let's see what Crystal's got to say here. I was in church one night and seen a demon attached to a young girl. They started to pray for her. She stomped out and spoke in a man's voice and left. Weeks later, she took her life. Oh, yeah, that happens a lot, Crystal. Seen it happen with my own eyes, definitely. Russell says, I personally have never experienced anything, but I firmly believe there's something to the stories, and I'm curious to understand it. Well, that's good, Russell. That's where knowledge begins, with curiosity, definitely. It did not kill that cat. If it did, it brought him back, definitely. Okay. I have seen demonic spirits do that, and actually, it's a very careful thing about exorcisms. You don't ever, you got to be very serious and sober-minded when you go into that kind of a situation. The same thing if you're dealing with perhaps human spirits. They're not going to take your joking around and laughing at them and all that kind of stuff. That's very disrespectful. You have to even respect spirits, okay, folks? You have to give everything a little respect. That's one thing I will not tolerate, is disrespect, whether it be from me or someone else. Or if you disrespect the subject, you're not going to learn anything that way. You're just being stupid, and there's no moratorium on that. Unfortunately, we've all been stupid from one time or another. It was something, but to me, you got to take this kind of stuff seriously, okay, and not be disrespectful about it. I never was. When I tried that one time, going in and hollering at these spirits and trying to get them to do something, I just never felt good about that. I didn't want to do that. You can kind of go the demonic spirit out of hiding by using religious names against it and all that. They don't like that. That's kind of goading them out, getting their attention, getting them out. But when it comes to the human spirit, I think you need to be a little more respectful. You get a little more back from that. But then again, most of the time you got to remember. And like I said, I'm not getting into the demonic tonight, but you got to remember that's the card that's on the table. And I have seen these things many, many times masquerade as human spirits, okay? So you got to be very careful, and that's why you need to study and learn all aspects, whether it's parapsychology, metaphysics, whatever the case may be. You need to study every bit of this from the inside out to understand what it is you're dealing with, how to take care of it, and have the solution for it, you know. And that was the one thing that struck me when I got deeper into this, going out and helping people with their problems and all that. That's what people want. They want a solution. It's not all about the thrill seeking and, oh, we had a great time, we investigated and we did all this, you know. It's not about that, folks. We need to have viable solutions when people need that, when they have a problem. Now, I'm not talking about investigations of historical places, and I've done a lot of those. I think one of the most interesting ones I ever did was I actually explored the old jail in Charleston, South Carolina. You talking about a major horror movie place? It would definitely, if I were going to film a horror movie tomorrow, I would go there. Definitely. I had some very interesting experiences in that castle of a building. It's been there since the days of pirates. Very old. I actually have a brick here from the courtyard where the gallows was situated. I have a lot of souvenirs here in the grotto. It's groovy down here in the grotto, folks. Okay, but anyway, the interesting aspect of all this is to have that respect and to understand what you're knowing. It's not about having a thrill and having fun and all that, although you can do that. I'm not trying to, be doom and Mr. Doom and Gloom and saying don't do that. I mean, you can enjoy what you do. I have over many years. I never would have done it. I did enjoy, especially, but you get a good feeling when you know you've helped people too, and you've learned knowledge. I think that we are standing on the precipice, on the edge of a new science. One day, I think this will all be considered a metaphysical science, a true science, and will be recognized that way. Until then, until the day gets that true respect that it needs, we will be ushering it in over the threshold. We will be the ones who are molding it and putting it forth. Unfortunately, there are some out there that do only this for money. Now I know I've written books and I do sell books, and I've only got back the money I've got in them, folks. I'm not a millionaire on this, okay? If you're looking for money in that, don't write a book, unless you're Stephen King. I just got my money back what I had put in it. That's okay. But the main thing I wanted to do was to share and push out this knowledge. That's the one thing about having knowledge, is a very foolish and very selfish thing not to share that knowledge, just like we're doing tonight here on Hunting the Shadows. And we're going to do every time there's going to be an episode of Hunting the Shadows. We're going to be putting that knowledge out there. We're going to be sharing that. And I want you to share it back with me. It's not just my job just to give it to you. I want you to, share it back to me. Sometimes, Philip says, spirits can attach to objects. A friend got into tarot, and that has strange things happening. Oh, yeah, definitely, Philip. You open the doorway to these things. You call them forth. They can attach to objects and to things that you're doing. Tarots and things like that, you got to be very careful with tarot cards, Ouija boards, seances, and all that, because, like I said, that's opening that door. And who you don't know what the heck's coming back through that door, definitely. A lot of times people don't know what they're getting themselves into. That's true, Derek. And they've got to really understand what that is. That girl kept playing this RPG. That's a very serious thing, because I've seen that happen. And if you're not careful, if you're not in the right frame, if you don't have that armor of light on, it can happen to you just as well as it can happen to anybody else. And that's where that armor of light needs to be on, as Romans 13:12 says, that armor of light that you got to put on, and that's very essential and very important. Russell said the books are great. Thank you, Russell. I appreciate that. And I'm working on some more, my friend. Definitely get out there. And it seems like there's never enough time to do everything, but that's the way it goes. But I like the feedback. I want to hear what you've got to say about it. It's not just me talking for an hour here or so at you. I want to hear back from you. I love the questions, observations, statements, whatever you want to do. I'm here for them. If you got, and of course, if you ever need any consultation of any kind, you need help, or you're just worried about something, or you want to report something, you can get me at ghostwolfdc.com. That's at gmail.com. Ghostwolfdc. That's like DC, Washington, DC. Ghostwolfdc at gmail.com. Okay, it's down there on the ticker. That's the way to get in touch with me. Yes, the cryptid hunters, the armor of God, definitely. That's what we've got to have as investigators, whether we're monster hunting or looking for Bigfoot or portals or whatever the case may be. We need that armor of light to ensure that our safety. If you don't take care of yourself, just like if you're a mother or father, how can you ever be there for your kids if you don't take care of yourself first? Okay, that's not selfish. That's being smart. Okay, take care of yourself. That way you can help everybody else. Okay, being a ex-law enforcement, I understand. And when you get in a situation, if you don't help, try to help others, what good are you? You know, but you got to first help yourself. You got to make sure you can stay there and be available and be able to help those other people, or you're useless. Okay, so let's not do that. Definitely. Question: can there be a non-spirit haunting? For example, no mind behind it, but like a house repeating a traumatic event within it, like a record. That's what I mentioned earlier, Philip, about residual haunting. Residual haunting, I think, is some kind of a time glitch, that you're actually looking back in time and you're seeing something repeated over and over and over again. I think it's I think it was Alexander Graham Bell. I think, if it was not mistaken, was trying to make a ghost machine so he could actually hear these voices from the past. He thought that all sound never goes away. It stays somewhere in the atmosphere. Let me give you a quick story about that. In 1972, I believe it was, and somewhere in Texas, I forget what town in Texas it was, there was a very bad thunderstorm, and a test pattern appeared on a TV screen. Okay, and they checked this test pattern. You remember the old test patterns? They had an Indian, Native American head on it with the headdress and all. You remember the old test pattern? And this test pattern appeared on the TV, and the guy there couldn't recognize it, and there were several witnesses to this, not just one person. And the thing was that they wrote down the number of the station and all that, and come to find out that station had went off the air 10 years earlier. So where did that test pattern come from? Very interesting. Will there ever be a 6-hour live? Some of these topics are very interesting. Freaky Geek, we may go out in the field one day and do some actual field work here, and that means either in a house or a haunted location. Not too long ago, I actually did an investigation of a double murder site. Very interesting thing on that. We may do that. We may go out in the field. I'm definitely going to be producing a video series called The Midnight Road: Excursions into the Unknown, Derek. So you may be watching for that. I'm going to be talking about some of my most famous cases that I've had over the years. They're going to be 10-minute videos. I'm going to do a whole series on them. And so you might want to be watching for that. I'm going into production very soon on that. Definitely. I've heard of living ghosts once, where a new owner of the place seen a husband and wife out arguing, but there was not there or not there. Well, sometimes this is an interesting theory that the psychic abilities of our spiritual aspects of our body, even while we're alive, can put forth what we might call a doppelganger, or a spiritual image of us. This happened with Abraham Lincoln when he saw himself. And he also saw his own death. He saw his own funeral in sort of a prophetic dream that he had. Very interesting. Well, thank you, Michelle. I'm going to try to get them out there. I've had some very, very interesting ones over the years. I've had the one I was thinking about the other day was the case of the witches' remains, which was very interesting. Some freaky stuff that went on there. I've had doppelganger cases. I've had a lot of other cases like that. And of course, I'm going to be talking about some that I wasn't even involved in, but were sort of ghost stories in my family. I'm going to be talking about some of those. One of them took place in Georgia, as a matter of fact, on a back country road in Georgia. It's called the White Thing. What was it? My, great great uncle saw. Interesting. We'll get into that later on. But by the way, folks, we've got the new stickers in. Okay. This is your sticker there, Crystal. I guess you won. And I have to be good to Crystal. She's my moderator. Okay. So anyway, one of them, and Shiro is my other one. Thank you a lot, Shiro, for being. And of course, Gerald can step in too. My good friend Gerald, whenever he needs to. So I wonder if Adam and Eve had more control of their minds, which gave them psychic abilities, and we're just seeing remnants of what after that fall. Well, that's interesting, Russell. I've said this before over many, many years. We have that God part in us, okay? And I'm not saying we're gods, but we have an inheritance, okay? That runs in us, and it is inherited from our Father, definitely. And that's why a lot of people have these psychic abilities and gifts, I think. Now you got to watch out for some of them. Some of them are con artists, okay? But I'm talking about that genuinely, well, just like my friend, the cryptid hunters, they have genuine gifts and they use them the right way, okay? They use them correctly. And I think those are gifts from God. That's my own humble opinion. That is what we inherit, some of that stuff, And so, yeah, that's definitely, they may have had some stuff going on that we don't know about. Definitely. Okay, yeah, the ghost hauntings are interesting facts. That's another astronaut fact. A lot of people blame me for being mostly demonic all the time, but no, I talk about a lot of other different subjects as well. And next week, I think you're all going to find it very interesting. New Age vampires, understanding the undead. It freaks people out a lot of times when I tell them werewolves and vampires do exist. There's even a rumor that the Frankenstein monster is a real thing, but we'll talk about that some other time too. But anyway, they do exist, but not the way Hollywood wants you to believe, okay? But we'll be talking about that next week, definitely. The New Age vampires, understanding the undead. Oh yeah, I hope that's going to be real interesting. Everybody in there, so get your crosses ready, okay, and your holy water and your stakes. I got my stake right here, as a matter of fact, just in case. By the way, I was telling somebody the other day, just a little anecdote, really quick. You always see them stake with a wooden stake. Actually, according to folklore, that's supposed to be iron. It's an iron stake. But if you do use wood, it's got to be a certain wood. It can't be just any plain wood, but it's got to be hawthorn, from the hawthorn tree. But that's folklore. But the main thing is the stake has to be blessed too, okay? Or it just don't work right, okay? It's got to be blessed. A lot of things have to be blessed. I'll tell you this really quick thing right quick. When I was a police officer, my gun and my bullets were blessed, okay? Just in case, I wanted them to be used the right way. I wanted them to be, used to protect people or whatever the case might be. I know that sounds kind of freaky, but I heard about other officers having that done as well. So it definitely was something you don't hear too much about. You ate your steak with sauce. It always goes good that way. Heinz 57 or what's the other one? I always use Heinz 57. Anyway. Doppelgangers, face, arranged, raised eyebrow. Okay. Doppelgangers can actually have been described as being human ghosts. Think about that term for just a minute. That's an interesting thing. Barbecue. Yeah, okay, I got you freaking. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed our talk tonight on just a little bit, scratch the surface a little bit on spiritual aspects of spiritual investigation. I don't like to call it ghost hunting because that term has been done to death. This is parapsychology to a certain extent. It is also a spiritual investigation. Spiritual investigation to me covers the whole thing, whatever it may be, not just a ghost. The spiritual aspects of our world, the unseen. That's why I named my book The Road Unseen. And by the way, if any of you are interested in that, The Road Unseen and Beyond the Shadows are available. They're on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. Put my name in, Dennis W. Carroll. I have to put the W in there because there's a soccer player named Dennis Carroll, and I don't play ball, okay? Not soccer anyway. But you can look me up on there if you're interested in acquiring any of those. My favorite, by the way, is The Road Unseen, and that's basically what we've been talking about tonight. The road that leads to the world of the unseen, the world that's all around us. If we could open our spiritual eyes, how amazed we would be, wouldn't we? Definitely. Sometimes that happens too. Sometimes we pierce that veil. Sometimes we see beyond the shadows to see what's really there. Sometimes I think we're allowed to do that because perhaps our Creator wants us to remember that there is another part of this universe that's beyond our eyes and our ears and our grasp on reality. Definitely. Okay. Watch last week's episode. Yeah, well, last week was interesting too. Definitely. So anyway, about time for me to close up shop here. But like I say, don't forget now we've got the stickers, so there may be some sticker giveaways coming along, folks, pretty soon. So keep an eye out for that. And next week, like I said, we'll be doing New Age vampires, understanding the undead. And if you've got any subjects you'd like to hear on here, definitely drop me a line and let me know some things that you might want to get into, because we cover all aspects. It's not just about demons and ghosts and that. There's a whole lot more to this, folks, than meets the eye, as I said earlier. There's a whole lot more subject to this field of investigation and research. There's earth lights, earth anomalies, earth mysteries, UFOs, and I've seen a UFO. I've had experience with that. I know how that goes. There's a whole lot more to this than just that. So really, we'll never run out of subject matter. Definitely. I never have. Anyway. All right. Thank you. Thank you, Crystal. Thank you, Derek. And I'm going to wind her up here. And I hope you all have a good what's left of the rest of the week here. It's hump day. When you see me, you know it's hump day. Okay. And I hope you'll tune in next week for the vampire thing. And until then, I want you to keep watching the skies. Keep a lookout for high strangeness, and keep an eye on the shadows. Until we meet again, my friends, via Candias.